Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today we're talking to Evan McCommon, who is a family farmer, and they are located in Louisiana. And Evan spent most of his career in a cubicle and has recently changed over to the farm. And now you guys have been farming for approximately, was it 7 years now?
It's closer to 9 or 10. I think we started in 2012. So what is that, 9, something like that?
Yeah. The 2021 always throws me through a loop.
I know, me too.
Some people like to think 2020 never happened. So
I think it counts for 5 years. It counts for 5.
All right. So Evan, before you were farming, you were like in product design, engineering, chainsaws, weed eaters, that kind of thing.
Yes, sir. And the last part of my career, I worked for a company. We designed commercial cooking equipment for big fast food chains. So I had experience with, a lot of stainless steel and restaurants and stuff like that.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, we've got Henny Penny nearby, and they're
that was a competitor of one of our competitors. It was Frymaster, who I worked.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. So the other end, the industrial cooking of the product.
Yeah. So I went from McDonald's to clean foods. Kind of funny.
That's awesome. So when you started your farm, you kind of had dived into the vegetable side of things and rapidly realized that just wasn't going to quite work.
Right. I mean, I've been on the family farm or managing it since I was young. I was probably 18 or 19 when I first was given responsibility for it. There was no one in the family to really do it. And we were back in the 20s when the farm first started. It was cattle and all kinds of diversified livestock and everything. And then it had devolved and, family died off and it ended up all going into timber. And so I was managing timber for a long time on the side while I had a full-time career.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
So talk to me about timber management. I actually ended up sitting on a flight one time with a guy who they had 50, 60, 80,000 acres. And that was kind of what their family farms were these massive timber farms. What scale were you managing it on?
We're probably around 1,000 to 1,400 acres.
Okay.
So it's smaller than what your friend had, but in Louisiana, I mean, that was, that's probably I would say we're a larger landowner in the area, but for a timber company, there's a lot of timber company land around here that's into, tens of thousands of acres. So we're a small timber farm or timber holder for a family.
Yeah. So then what does timber management look like? What's the cycle?
15 to 30 years. So, typically, if you go from a plantation or planting the trees to your first thinning, you're looking somewhere between 10 and 15 years for your first thinning and then 30 for a final harvest. But that industry has been changing a lot over the past few years, and the market has changed. There are a lot less sawmills and a lot less companies, making products. So things have gone more towards the pulpwood side of things and less towards the saw timber. So it really shook up what our long-term plans were. And that was one of the many reasons that contributed to me looking into diversification into other things to do with the farm.
Yeah. So then what was the time or the date that you were like, okay, this isn't working, or we need to make a change? And when did the first chickens hit the farm on a larger scale?
Right. Probably we need to make a change thing was probably 2009, 2000.
Okay.
There, my grandfather had passed away and I was working on his house and I was putting up this trim board and I noticed a little sticker on the trim board that said product of Sweden.
Oh my gosh.
And at the same time, literally at the same time, there was a log truck going behind me down Mahaffey Road with a load of our timber.
Yeah.
And I thought, how ironic is this, or crazy is it that I'm putting a board on my grandfather's home that he built from Sweden, and yet I'm selling timber right now.
Wow.
And so it was kind of that was my little moment of just kind of really changing my passion. It just got me into it. And then, I'd already kind of seen the Food Inc. movie and was getting into healthier living and lifestyle and just, it all just sort of came together where this is my purpose and this is what I need to do. So first chickens didn't hit hit the ground until 2012 or 2013. But I would say we started with pigs when it came to livestock. And so really we got pigs in 2012.
Okay. And talk to us about the pork operation a little bit. What is the breed and how do you raise them?
We raise a red wattle and a Tamworth cross.
Okay.
We raise them on pasture, very similar to the polyface style. We put them on paddocks that are about a half acre, and we rotate them when they've gone through a couple tons of feed, maybe 2.5 tons. It depends on how the ground is looking as to when we decide it's time to move them to the next paddock.
Yeah.
So it's really, and it changes a lot with the seasons. We get 52 inches of rain here. A lot of it is in the winter. So, they can really tear up a paddock quick in the winter. So we either keep them more stationary in the winter on high ground, or we move them more quickly depending on what part of the farm they're on.
Now your t-shirts, they cultivate the 318. Are those your specific farm t-shirts? And talk to us, what is the 318? Your zip code or your area code?
Yeah. All of North Louisiana is 318. So it's basically from the center. So Louisiana's shaped like a boot. From like the top of the boot all the way north is all 318. And we're really not known for much agriculture or much local food up here. New Orleans kind of steals the spotlight on that, or the South does. And so we, it was a little slogan that I came up with. I saw something, I think it was a Chipotle commercial where they were saying cultivate a better world. And I said, well, we need to cultivate a better Shreveport or a better 318. And I said, cultivate 318. That kind of makes sense. So we just made it a little slogan and made some t-shirts, and it kind of took off, and everybody around here likes it because, we do have a little small local food movement going on, and it's just something to encourage that.
Absolutely. All right. So you got the pigs, and then you got the chickens, and the chickens look like they're in a larger hoop house style pen, correct?
We have both. We have about 20 Salatin pens, and then we have 4 of the mobile range coops, or schooners we call them.
And which one do you prefer?
Honestly, I think there is a point of diminishing returns on the Salatin pen. When you're trying to run 20 of them with just a couple guys, it gets to be a little tedious, and it just, I think we got to burn out a little quick on those. And the schooners, we've been struggling with staffing with the pandemic, and so when you bring in people in, it's easier to train on the schooner than it is on the Salatin pen, and you have less hazards for the birds. So we're kind of evolving. We still, like I said, we're still running 20 pens, but we're probably going to evolve to more of the mobile range coops as we move forward.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I think
I think I'm being honest about that. Joel was here at our farm probably back in September, and we talked about it, and I agree with a lot of his stuff on why his pens are better, and in a lot of circumstances on our farm they are better. But at a certain scale, and with certain, if you don't really have the right team, sometimes you're bringing in novices or just day laborers, just kind of have to go with something simpler.
Well, Polyface has a large labor source from interns, and so they just have them move them. But if you have very few people, my brother's out in Oklahoma and he farms pretty much by himself, and so there's no way
they're perfect for a one-man operation. You really can't go wrong with them if you're one guy, especially. And I've done those chores a lot by myself in the morning, and it's nice just to not have to you don't need any equipment or machinery. You just get it done. And it's good, it's good for your health too. Just staying in shape a little bit.
Yes, but most farmers don't need any extra work.
Right. But when there's not really an expert supervisor watching things go on, and you can train on those mobile range coops quite a bit faster.
Yes. Yeah. I would love to get it set up where you just have a winch located right on the front of the, by power, solar powered. And so basically it actually automatically pulls across the field, it just moves forward like 2 feet an hour. And at that rate, the chickens will probably move themselves when it gets to the back of the pen.
We're experimenting with that with a remote controlled winch and a radio remote control winch. And then you have the winch mounted on the back of the tractor.
Okay.
And you push a button and you can be back there waving and flagging the chickens and by yourself. So that it is possible to do it. But they sell a, radio controlled winch. So that's the way to go.
We actually, Okay. So then, if you're doing that, how many birds are you fitting in there?
we inherited our current schooners from a different farm, or from another
Okay.
farm. I bought out a guy who was getting out of the business because he was in some low wet areas,
Yep.
and he was having trouble with mortality with that. So we bought them. They're on the small side. I think we're only putting about 200 to 300 in each one, which is to me not quite enough. So we're building some bigger schooners now to replace them. But we're aiming for somewhere around the 400 to 600 birds per unit.
400 to 600 birds per
Yeah.
unit. Yeah.
We're processing 600 birds a week at this time.
Okay. So let's now move into your processing. You doing that out in farm?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay. And then what kind of team does that need to do 600?
Typically, we'll have anywhere from 5 to. We don't do 600 in one day. We do 2 process days, or 2 kill days on the farm. So we usually do a Monday and a Wednesday, and we'll usually do around 300 to 400, or sometimes it ends up being 200. It just depends on what's going on and what we're harvesting for. So yeah, it's 5 people is kind of the minimum, and but sometimes we've had up to 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah, being consistent is difficult these days.
Yes, with it's like a very tight labor force. So you're kind of
tight labor force, turnovers, and we're just we have people that aren't showing up, things like that. But we're getting it done every week. It's just sometimes we only have a crew of 5 people, but it takes a little longer. But we keep going.
Yeah. Now you also do processing for let's talk about your red blood animals, well, your larger animals. How's that processing done?
It's done at a facility called McCommon Farms, which is in Calhoun, Louisiana, about an hour down the road, down Highway or I-20. We've been working with them for about 9 years, and the owner had decided that he was kind of burning out, was ready to sell. He didn't really have a succession plan per se, and so he offered to us. So we were probably his largest customer, and largest private label customer, and we decided to kind of go forward with that because there was a kind of a threat to what was going to happen as to how we were going to get our processing done and maintain consistency. We do a lot of pork processing, and we have a lot of sausages and specialty little meats that we do with the pork, and trying to take those recipes from one facility to another was going to be a real challenge. So we took this opportunity to go ahead and take the big plunge and buy the plant. And with my background, I feel pretty confident that I'll be able to make this work. And we're only about 6 months or 7 months into the new ownership and my management. And I brought in my sister, who's actually she's coming in as an operations manager with a business background, and she's helping me with the administrative side of things. And I'm sort of focusing on production. But we have a good staff there that was able to keep the quality consistent. Another challenge we faced going into that purchase was, the pandemic had backed up the our custom beef that we do for a lot of local farmers. So there was a large backlog of folks that were waiting to have their beef processed. So what I've done for these first 6 months is focus entirely on getting that backlog caught up and getting all these local farmers. And I've really enjoyed it, meeting all the local ranchers and farmers that do their own custom processing or do halves and wholes, and sales to their own customers, and really taking care of them and just being part of that agricultural community where we're serving other farmers, not just our own animals. So it's kind of a fun thing I'm enjoying at this time.
All right. Very cool. Now talk to us, let's go back to talk about the forest transition, because you went from forest to a lot of pasture. What was that transition look like?
I'd say that was a work in progress, but we did choose what I call the nucleus of the farm, around the homestead area. We decided to go ahead. We were ready for our first thinning in that area anyway. And so we decided to go ahead and do a clear cut in that, so we could start building pastures near the nucleus of the farm, or the zone 1. And we started focusing on putting pigs in these cutovers, and we roll out hay bales for the cattle, and we rotate that system through, because when you're going from forest to pasture, you're going from a fungal environment to a microbial environment in the soil. And so introducing the cattle has been a good thing. Introducing the pigs, because they're turning the soil over, they're putting down their own manures, and We're bringing in hay almost all the time, even for the pigs, because they make their bedding and gives them some shelter in different weather. So it's just been a lot of moving around and keeping things, or letting things kind of take their time to build up. I mean, we've built, you're going from pine straw to pasture, basically. It's pretty tough.
Yeah. No, that's not easy. So
No.
then with stumps, you obviously cut as low as possible. And then
I forgot about that phase. So when we first did we did invest in some mulching. So we paid a contractor to bring in a mulcher and took the slash and just went over it in a single pass. Those mulching machines that they will turn the soil over. So I had a lot of talks with the operator, and we instructed him to not. He basically leveled off all the slash and leveled off all the stump tops, and that's where we started. And so we did about 60 to 80 acres to start that way, and the rest of the forest management we're doing some silvopasture, to where we're not clear cutting, but we're doing thinnings that are a little bit more spread out, letting a little bit more light down, and we're trying to convert those areas to a silvopasture system. And I'm working with my forester on that. That's a project that's not going as well as I would want to, as far as me dedicating time to it and working on it. So we're behind, and we need to do some brush management in some of those areas. We have a Chinese tallow infestation, if you want to call it. That's an invasive species that we're trying to get rid of. And it's been tough. We're trying to make a commitment not to use chemicals. We've done some very specific, what's called a hack and squirt, or chop and squirt, where you just take a little hatchet and you chop the trunk and squirt a little chemical in there that kills that one tree without having to spray. So we're experimenting with some herbicide control that way, because we were losing the battle. It was taking a lot of bush hogging and tree cutting, or we have what's called a tree cutter, which is like a bush hog, but you go backwards and it cuts trees. Brush. And that's just expensive and time consuming, and it doesn't really work that well because the tallows just come right back. So like I said, that's an ongoing fight that we're fighting to convert this pasture, or convert forest to pasture, but we're winning, just not as well as I would like to be.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a really challenging process too. I mean, it's going from one extreme to another with a 30-year life cycle to an annual. So
right, and trying to keep costs to a minimum. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Without spending a boatload of money and pulling all the stumps out and that kind of stuff. All right. So let's talk about the sales system, or your marketing. You have an on-farm store, I see. And what other channel, and then you do home delivery. What other channels do you sell through?
We do some wholesale stuff. We sell to some various little health food and grocery stores throughout the state, and a couple of a few restaurants. I should have been prepared with those numbers, but I think we were somewhere between all the restaurants and grocery stores. There's over 30 different locations we're at in the state with some product.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now let's talk about the farm store. Was that from the beginning?
Yes, it was. We had it on the farm. It was basically an old garage on the farm. And in 2017, we purchased an adjacent piece of land that used to be a golf course, and it has highway frontage, and it had an old clubhouse.
Okay.
And so we converted that to a store, and we had just started getting in groceries. We were working with UNFI and bringing in some products to complement our meats and our whatever vegetables we were doing. And the pandemic hit, and we had and so we immediately put all of those groceries on our Graze Cart site and started selling direct and doing home delivery. So we went from, say, a 20 to 30 home deliveries a week to 150, 160, very rapidly. And so then we basically shut the store down during the pandemic. We did shut it down, because it just became an order packing warehouse is all it was, or an order packing room. And now I don't remember what day we reopened, but now we're kind of having to get our feet back underneath us in the grocery store again, just because a lot of the products that we wanted to sell, we couldn't get them. So we started, we were home delivering toilet paper. So, we were doing all that stuff. And so we just ended up with some products that weren't in our grocery store that weren't really what we were aiming for at the time. And now we're starting to redevelop some of those relationships with our farmers market friends. We're bringing in more products from other local farms. We've always brought in, dairy and some other and vegetables, but it's just an ongoing project. Just trying to get more products and figure out what our customer base wants. We're trying to, work with the folks that care about clean eating and offer them some good products and local products, of course. And we have, what we call our hyper local products, which are products that we, get from places that are in this parish or the adjacent parish, in the city. And we really try to promote our friends and our people that we're working with, locally.
Yeah. And so how do you develop those relationships with those hyper local products?
It kind of started with the farmers market, because there were some restaurants that were just starting out. They were starting out as pop-ups in the farmers market when we started, and now they're brick and mortar. So we had those relationships with chefs that we meet at the market and small businesses, and then also our slow food chapter. We've had a lot of luck with our local slow food leaders. We've started doing a farm to table dinner every year called Fet on the Farm, and that has brought us a lot of notoriety, and new people come to that every year and learn about our products. And we also meet new vendors or new farming partners to sell their products with. And it's just it is, I would say, just chefs, farmers market, and slow food.
That's interesting. That's that we don't around here don't have a huge slow food. There's not a huge.
It's interesting because I think we have one of the largest slow food chapters in the United States, and I think it's just the leadership we have here. We have a really good chairman, or Angie White, and she really focuses on getting things done and promoting events and promoting local businesses, and I think that's just one of my unfair advantages, I guess, is that we have a really good slow food crew out here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. So the business has grown pretty rapidly. How do you manage the growth?
That's a really great question. I don't manage it as well as I want to, but I think it's really important to hire people that are better than you at managing, especially some of the different categories. I've managed to always bring in someone that was the right person at the right time. And, when it came to our grocery store, we brought in someone with grocery experience. It worked at a co-op in Austin and knew how to manage that. It's always kind of come with the people that we have on the farm helping us. Is me learning to delegate and not try to control things or micromanage, and just letting things, work at their pace. I can be a bit intense and want to get things done quickly, but I've learned to let it operate and let things build and grow at the pace that our staff can manage it at, and that I can manage it at. Because you can really push yourself to burnout if you set your time goals too soon. You try to get things knocked out, and up and running when you really need to give yourself some time to learn and make some changes as you go.
Yeah, and growing too fast is also challenging too.
Yeah, well, you can grow, or you can make decisions that'll put you in a position that are hard to back out of. That's what I worry about. It's just, steady pace growth is what I'm trying to do. I don't feel like it's rapid, but I mean, it's, when I look back to just a couple of years ago, I mean, the pandemic really just kind of changed my perspective, because everything happened so fast. We tried to change our mentality to grow faster, to meet the demand, and to be able to implement systems that could keep up with a larger sales demand and not overshoot the mark. Because we knew that things were going to go back to normal and bounce back out, but we had to figure out where and how much of the market of these new customers were we really going to capture for long term. And that's probably what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, I was talking to another grower who said they've seen the pandemic buying craze disappear.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we're kind of going back to 2019 levels. I would say we're getting pretty close to that. But we're bigger than we were, but it just feels more like it's definitely dialed back a lot.
Talk to us about your red label, the certified organic feed, and blue label conventional feed products. What led to your decision to offer both of those?
Yeah, that was that was something that evolved from circumstances also. When I first started all this, I was pretty gung-ho. I really wanted to offer, I wanted to buy non-GMO grains and do a non-GMO animal feed for all of our omnivores. And I just wasn't finding any mills locally that were offering. I say locally, I mean regionally. I couldn't find any farmers that were growing non-GMO. I even went to the Mennonites. They were all growing Roundup Ready corn. And Coyote Creek Feed Mill in Elgin, Texas, which is about 5 hours away, was offering, they were the only certified organic feed mill in the South at the time. This is back in 2011, 2012. And so that's kind of where I ended up going, was I wanted to have the absolute premium product. And what evolved later was started working with these chefs, and the restaurants were wanting my product. But I mean, that was cost prohibitive to be organic. So what really mattered was the pastures, being on rotation, on pasture. That's what really creates the quality. And we knew that we could do the same thing with a commercial or a conventional grain. And so we started working with a local mill to make us a matching conventional grain feed. And we implemented we started with pork so that we could start a wholesale business and work with these chefs and give them the products they were asking for. And then that's where it began. And now it's just become part. We during the pandemic, we started producing more of our wholesale product because we were trying to keep the price point down for folks that were just getting into eating pastured meats. And so we still do it. It's, and it sounds a bit crazy and confusing, but really it's not different than any other industry. You have like even Bud Light, and then you have premium. Yeah. There's all these different brands will have their premium brand. And so our red label is our premium brand. That's like that's our highest level product. And for our customers that have been with us long term, they didn't want to change, and we didn't want to back off on quality. So how do you add another dimension to this production model with and keep it where it's not confusing, or change the brand name entirely? So we chose to go with a color system. And I saw a farm in California that did it with grass fed during a drought. They were offering a non-grass fed product during a drought. So they changed their label color to signify that product. And I think Pasture Bird did it also, or does it. They have different levels of feed. Maybe it was Primal Pastures.
Yeah.
That was doing 3 different label colors. Like a white was for their wholesale, and then they had a green for their non-GMO. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Seeing that other farms had done it and it was working, that's kind of where we went. And it's working okay. I mean, it would be simpler, obviously, if we just had one, but it's also an advantage for us because we can, if someone says, well, you're not using non-GMO, it's like, well, then you would be interested in our red label product. We can always find a product for every customer's perspective.
That's really interesting, because that's one of the things we struggle with our farm store is that, how do we produce 90% of the vegetables, but we don't grow sweet corn, we don't grow melons. So how do we offer those, and how do we quickly show people which is what? So I think like a color label might be really key for us too.
Yeah. And even Whole Foods, I think, had that, or different levels.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Customers are used to it. It just sounds, I think from a business owner's perspective, it sounds like chaos. How do I keep all this separate? But it really isn't difficult because, we grow our animals in groups. And so we have a batch of blue label pigs over here and a batch of red ones over here. And we make sure that they're at least 2 to 3 fences apart. So there's no intermingling. And once you've got those systems in place, it's impossible to mess up.
Yeah. Now, do you have those sets of pigs or chickens labeled on like this so they don't give them the wrong feed?
Correct. Yeah. So the employees don't mess up. We hang a little plastic tab with a red or a blue tag on the feeder, so that there's no confusion.
Perfect.
Hey, thriving farmers, where are you on your thriving farmer journey? So if you go to our website, growingfarmers.com, you can click on the assessment button, and that will take you to a form, ask you a few different questions, and that will help you figure out where you are on the 5-stage thriving farmer journey. And what that does then is kicks you a customized PDF that gives you resources to know exactly what to focus on next in your business to go to the next level. So go to growingfarmers.com and click on the assessment.
So with the pork facility, let's talk about that, the pork and beef facility. What has been like your big key as you've acquired that, as you've started to run that yourself? What has been the major hurdles?
First was the backlog of customers. We had some pretty upset customers that had been waiting for months to get processed. The previous owner was, he was on his way out, so there wasn't really an imperative for him to manage that very well. And I'm not saying he didn't do good. I think he was doing the best he could in a chaotic situation. The phone rings off the hook. Everybody's, I'm sure you're aware, and the listeners are aware, that processing beef and pork right now is difficult. There's a backlog. And so we just had to come up with some customer service and some scheduling systems quickly. And basically it's just, spreadsheet and a calendar. And we just sit down and have meetings and make sure that we called every single customer, found out what their needs were, how long they've been waiting, and putting them in order, and making sure that we can get the ones that are the squeakiest wheels are getting done first. And then we can start developing a scheduling system for customers where they're not just calling and asking, when can I bring it? That we give them a date range or a month range, and then we call them for a final scheduling. That's been kind of the biggest challenge we've been dealing with so far, is getting that out of the way. And I haven't felt like it was ethically right for me to process my own beef until I had that problem solved, because and so we've been holding on to we probably have 20 to 30 steers that we need to process. And because they're grass fed, I have a little bit more flexibility. A lot of these customers are grain fed, and they're putting money in, and corn prices are up. So you can just imagine the phone calls we're having. And so I'm putting that as a priority. And then we're starting to finally work in some of our own beef now that we've gotten it cooled off a little bit.
Yeah. Now, did we able to bring over most of the old employees?
Yes. I mean,
That's
all
awesome.
we brought over everybody we could. I mean, we don't think we lost one person in the whole thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. Cause I know finding qualified people to do that is very challenging.
Yes, it is very challenging. We're still trying to hire a couple more. We're looking for a whole animal butcher. And it's been difficult to find someone in this area with that experience. We'll probably have to train somebody up, but yeah, we have openings for that now. And maybe somebody listening will be interested.
You never know. So let's talk a little bit about your marketing aspects. You've got the store, you do some wholesale, you do home delivery. How are you getting out in front of the customer? Are you running any ads or putting in, you said the slow food aspect, but are you doing anything else?
Not really. Honestly, it's been social media. We stay active on Instagram and Facebook. Our Facebook is probably our biggest following, and a lot of the locals here follow Facebook. I would just say it's kind of a big Facebook town, whatever that means.
Yeah.
The demographic, most of our customers are, older women, or a lot of women, and they seem to be on Facebook a lot. And that has been the primary thing that we've done. We do a newsletter. And honestly, when the pandemic hit, marketing kind of took a back seat. And we're just now, I'm just now getting back into the marketing and trying to, get that cleaned back up. And I think we're behind on a lot of stuff, of course. And just our website needs some updates. Our Facebook needs updates, but we're working on it a little bit every day.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the structure you have there for the team. Do you, what is your role, and what key hires have you made as you built out the business?
Key hires is, we kind of divide the business into, I think it's 5 major segments. So we have the production, we have administrative, we have our marketing and sales, then we have our processing. Really the main and what I call the critical control point is our inventory and distribution. Inventory is kind of what we always talk about. What do we need in inventory? What's coming into inventory is always what the meetings are about. But so we try to have one person who's in charge of each of these divisions. It's been a little tricky these days, but we maintain a responsible person in each of those 5 segments, and then everyone reports to them. So I'm not, I can't keep up with more than, say, 5 people anyway. So we kind of just have that structure where there's a department per person. And then my sister, who is also our operations manager, who just came back recently to help with this, she is going back and forth between the 2 companies. and she's mostly at McCain's right now, which is the name of our processing plant. And we're she's developing a team over there where we have the five people. So between she and I, we're going to have 10 division managers over the different little parts. That's kind of the way it's working right now. Obviously, it's evolving and changing.
Absolutely. Let's talk about kind of as you scaled, as you started the farm. What were kind of some of the key things you learned along the way?
Probably the biggest thing I learned, and it's been the biggest reward for me and just release is I work with a guy named Theron Boudreau, who is Integrated Acres. He's a consultant.
Okay.
And he introduced me to this concept called open book management. And when he first told me about it, I thought it was the most insane thing I'd ever heard of, which is basically you have meetings with your employees and you show them your books, or to put it simply, like everyone at the company is aware of what the numbers are. And I was like, I'm not going to tell everybody, what, but it's really not that as bad as it sounds. What it is everyone knows what sales are. So every week we have a meeting, and in that meeting we go over each division and what sales were, what's in inventory, and what production was, what's coming down the line. And so with this being open and the finance, the actual cash flow being viewed, it actually makes it so much easier for me, because the communication is brought down to every level, and we all work together as a team rather than the boss man giving orders. It's everyone's aware of the problems, everyone's aware of where we need to focus our attention, and if we need to bring in, like if we need to increase chicken production because we have big orders coming in a month or 2 months, that open book management has been the biggest tool for me to help me manage people, because I think that's my biggest challenge. I think working with people is probably everyone's biggest challenge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the beauty of the open book is it kind of really shows everybody, hey, this is where we are. This is not just, we're just not making money hand over fist. And people realize, the speed of work that they do is directly relationship with how much money the farm makes. A lot of people see it. Yeah, a lot of new people around the farm, like, Michael, you walk so fast. And I was like, well, I've got 18 things to do today.
And they don't think you're an insane person. They realize that they actually kind of know what you're after and what you're doing. Because I think that people, when they see business, this is kind of my little joke, but it's like, I think they think of business people as like Scrooge McDuck, and we're just swimming in this pile of money. And we're just making a decision as to where we're going to spend it. And it's like, no, that's not how cash flow management works. And so by letting them in on it and see it, it just gives us so much more power as a team. Yeah.
And then I think they are starting to come, they will try to save things, and then they will also try to help you figure out efficiencies.
Yeah, they see opportunities for themselves, places where they can grow and help the business grow, and then they get to move up.
Yeah.
So that's what we're excited about. And it's been working. It's just, like I said, there's an underlying issue with them nationwide with employment right now. But I think we're because we're still using these systems and we're working with it, that when things level off, we're going to be even better off and more ready to handle things and keep growing as we move forward.
Yeah. We're facing that same thing. We need to hire for like 3 different positions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's 3 different half-time positions, but we could easily hire one person to do a couple of them. So,
right.
All right. So let's talk about your pigs. You talked about the red wattle. I think you said Berkshire mix.
Tamworth
mix. Yeah. And why did you go with that? Was that particular to your area, or?
Yeah, the red wattle pig or red wattle hog, I don't know if you've heard the history of it, but it was thought to be extinct, I think, until the mid 1980s.
Okay.
And it was actually rediscovered in East Texas, is where the last ones were found, and then bred back to some Durocs, and they brought the breed back out of almost extinction or extinction. And so it's on the Ark of Taste, and it's an endangered breed. And because it happened to be, I mean, I am East Texas as far as biome goes.
Yeah.
We're in the Piney Woods of East Texas. And so I think I'm only 30 minutes from the Texas border. So we chose that breed because it would be resilient and parasite resistant. And sure enough, we've had, nothing but good luck with that breed. It's also a really tasty pork. The chefs love it. And we brought in the Tamworth. I got it some breeding stock from a buddy up in Arkansas, and the Tamworth has a little bit more of a meaty, that hourglass shape, has some better bacon and hams. And so we just started crossbreeding because we were crossbreeding with some Hampshires and blue butts and things like that. And I liked what I had read about the Tamworth foraging, they're being more of a foraging pig. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that the combination of those two breeds would make sense for us. But like I said, we've had success, but it's not scientific success because we haven't been doing a side-by-side comparison, but certainly not having any trouble out of those breeds. And the chefs love them, our customers love them.
Mm-hmm. And the moms are good mothers, take care of the kids?
Yes, I have contracted out my farrowing. I work with another farmer to do the farrowing, similar to what Polyface does. So, because I just can't, there's certain things, we just can't do the farrow to finish right now. I'm sure one day we'll get back into it. We did start out that way, but it's been a lot easier to just buy the piglets from our contract farmer. And he's happy to have the business with us, because we basically buy every piglet he produces, and it's good for both of us. It's a good relationship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What does the future hold for you? Where do you see your areas of opportunity and growth?
That's something I've been thinking about a lot. We are only state inspected for chicken and red meat, and there is consideration to go USDA. I don't think I'm going to be pushing that project too hard until we get leveled off with the red meat plant, and we really feel comfortable. But there are some government grants that are being talked about these days, or real,
I saw that.
And there's something for us to look at there. So that's a project we're going to kind of investigate deeply this week. But honestly, I want to figure out and level off. I want to figure out what scale. I think with the chickens, we're probably going to stick. I had a long talk with Greg Gunthorpe about it, and I think we're going to stick with our exempt 20,000 birds a year on our pastured broilers for now, and not go USDA until maybe next year if things, just to see how the market goes. But I have a feeling that that's probably the best choice for us, is just to stay at that 20,000 bird level, but that keeps us in the state. And that's what's difficult for us, because we are, like I said, we're in the Arklatex. We're on the corner of 3 different states.
Yeah.
We're 3 hours from Little Rock, we're 3 hours from Dallas, 3 hours from Jackson, and we're 6 hours from New Orleans, which is interesting. But
exactly.
I would have some bigger markets open to me if I was USDA, but those areas also have a lot of competition too. And so like I said, leveling off is kind of what I'm trying to figure out, what scale we can go with the acreage we have, with the processing capacity we have, and just focus on a high quality, local, regional product that we can stand behind and be comfortable and get our lifestyle to be a little bit less hectic. Because lifestyle has been pretty tough the last year, 2 years, is just, we're working long days and long hours, and it doesn't seem like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Well, I think we have to choose to stop growing to get to that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, those first couple of years and trying to figure out the scale. I mean, we're on an 8-acre parcel, and this year we did about 1.5 acres of vegetables. And I'm like, okay, if we'd add 6 more acres, what kind of volume would that look like? And I'm just like, well, how would we fit that through our current systems? And there's no way. So
right, yeah. And that's another part of the answer too, is it also depends on how the marketing goes. It depends on what the market, what demand are we able to create or supply, and we're always going to be, I think it's an ongoing question. It may never have an answer, but I'm happy with the scale we're at, as far as I like the number of people we have. I like the size of the farm. I like the number of animals we have. It's feeling really comfortable. And I just want to make sure that we can maximize and optimize this scale.
And make it work better.
Make it work. Yeah.
Cleaner.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Any final thoughts before we go?
No, it's been an honor. I really thank you for talking to me, and I look forward to listening to more of your podcasts. They're really great. I was going to mention that I listened to your recent one with Tim Peterson in Arizona.
Yes.
Which he just got his own. He and I have a lot in common right now.
Yes.
And just listening to his stories. That's what's so great about your podcast, is just listening to other farmers that are where I'm at or where we're headed, and just, especially where we're headed. I love listening to your stuff, and the questions you ask are perfect for this time.
Awesome. Yeah. The people that are a couple of years ahead or even 6 months ahead are really helpful.
Yes. Because you can just see what's coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for your time, Evan. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Michael. All right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Hey, Thriving Farmers, have you checked us out on YouTube lately? We have a bunch of new content there, including a few rants by me. I want to tell you, you don't want to miss them. I actually go rant about, some of the problems I see in our space and some of the challenges I see farmers facing. So go check that out. We've got instructional videos over there as well. Talk about setting up our new farm here in Ohio and all the steps we're going to do that, as well as just tutorials and tips on best practices for all sorts of things on the farm. So go ahead, check over at Growing Farmers on YouTube and see the new content we put together for you. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.